Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. And the Sunrisers Hyderabad have beaten the Kolkata Knight Riders by 7 wickets and have won their last 3 games. And the reason why I gave them a chance in my preview is because the games in the Brabham Stadium have been high scoring, and I think the bowling attack that can stay in the game for the longest has the advantage. Yes, it's the case for all cricket, but especially if you compare these two attacks. For KKR, in their previous game, they didn't get much movement with the new ball, not much assistance for the spinners in the middle overs, and they conceded runs to the death anyway. So they couldn't execute their desired bowling template that I've said countless of times, which is destroy the opposition before the 15th over, as they're going to go for runs anyway at the death. And so they were going to concede a massive score, which they did, and they lost the game by 44 runs. And in this game, yes, both sides got some movement with a new ball, but generally the wicket seemed like a batting-friendly wicket. And outside the power play, KKR were going to struggle as the spinners. Still, there wasn't much assistance for them from the surface, and they were going to concede runs at the end anyway. And I think SRH, with their attack really being able to last longer in the game, I think that, or be in the game for longer, they restricted KKR for a score that they wouldn't have minded to chase, and they won the game quite easily in the end. And I'm not surprised SRH won this game, or rather have won their last 3 games. I think that I never thought that their first 2 losses would have been a preview for how their season was going to turn or unfold, rather. And I think they were probably the most overhated team after the auction finished. And I actually think that they've assembled quite an adaptable squad. And so, yeah, I'm actually not surprised that they have won their last 3 games in the way that they've done. And so regarding the starting 11s of both teams, Aaron Finch was brought in for Sam Billings because of a forced change. Apparently Sam Billings was unwell. And Sheldon Jackson was brought in for Ajinkya Rahane because of the fact that the overseas slots were taken up. And also Aman Khan was brought in for Rasik Salam. And for the Sunrisers, one change. Now, with Sundar being injured, Jagdish Suchit was brought into the side. And I think you're losing out on a few overs there because I would have played Shreyas Gopal instead of Sundar to really get those 4 overs. But I think that if without Sundar and without playing Romario Shepherd in the side instead of Janssen, I think that they didn't exactly have that power hitter after number 5 that could really influence the game. And that's the reason why I think Suchit at 7, despite the fact that he isn't necessarily a 4-over bank, he can play those cameos at number 7, and that's why I think they went for him. And Kane Williamson won the toss and chose to bowl first. Now, Bhuvneshwar Kumar bowled to Aaron Finch, and this is a matchup that we've seen since India toured Australia in 2019. And he was batting quite far outside his crease, and this reminded me of the time when Bhuvneshwar Kumar actually bowled a ball before he got to the stumps to really recreate that 22 yards as Finch was standing outside his crease. But in this case, he soon reverted to, he had to stand inside his crease because Nicholas Puran was standing up behind the stumps. And he hit a 6 straight down, kind of down the ground, over long on, an extraordinary shot. And he started off well, but unfortunately for him, he played a shot in the second over that he wouldn't want to look back on the highlights for. A nothing shot of Marco Jansen, and he was caught behind for 7 off 5. And before I realised that this change was a forced change, I thought that they'd gone down a route that I didn't want them to go down. I thought that they played Finch for Rahane because of a more explosive option, but I think I've said this before. I don't know why over the last 2 seasons there's been this view on Rahane as not being a T20 player. I just think when he was playing for the Capitals, he either batted at 3 or he didn't play at all. And I just think that so he wasn't exactly used in a position of strength, and he was used way less often. And the last time he played a full season, he opened the batting for Rajasthan Royals, scoring quite a few runs, including a century as well. So I think that this whole thing to say that he isn't a T20 player and he can't give you those aggressive starts is just nonsense in my view. And Aaron Finch doesn't have a great record in the IPL, so even then, you're much more rather going for the proven Indian player in these conditions. And he can give you, and the thing about Rahane is that he also gives you a fast out without taking risks at all, basically. And for Aaron Finch, he's never really got batting in the IPL, and I felt, and before I've realized this was a forced change, I thought that this was kind of a change based on reputation rather than what he's done previously. And in the overs that followed, there was a combination of Venkatesh struggling against the moving ball and Shreyas struggling against the pace and bounce of Umran Malik. I think for the latter, it is a well-known fact that he does struggle against that, and I think pretty much this whole lineup, or most of this lineup, does struggle against that. And I think that for Venkatesh, look, we've seen him struggle when the ball is kind of bowled at that hard length area. He doesn't really seem to have a scoring option when he faces those deliveries. And in this case, he struggled against a moving ball and was dismissed by Natarajan with a gap between bat and pad, and he was bowled. And I think that I've used the word raffinity a lot when it comes to Venkatesh, and probably the most when talking about any cricketer, because I think that if you're looking at his technique, it isn't really too refined. And I think that, look, he had a very good impact, a great impact in the second leg of IPL 2021. And the reason why I think he was fast-tracked to the national side is because of the dearth of seam bowling all-rounders in India. But at the same time, he hardly bowls. So I don't think you can actually, at this point, I don't think you can call him an all-rounder as such. And I think with his technique, it isn't exactly refined. So I wasn't surprised that this season hasn't exactly gone well for him so far. I just thought that, yes, he had gone well in previous season, but he has weaknesses in his batting that he needs to address. And as of now, his technique doesn't really seem too refined against pace bowling. So that's something he's going to have to work on. But again, it's against a moving ball and against a hard length. So he does have quite a bit to work on that front. And 2 balls later, another wicket fell because they sent Sunil Narine out to kind of pinch hit them out of trouble. He hit a 6 first ball, but then hit the ball straight to Shashank Singh, a full toss, but tried to play it kind of a through point, and he was caught in the end of a kind of point direction over that kind of region, and he was caught in the end. And so 31 for 3 in 4.3 overs. KKR were in a bit of a mess. Yes, with Sunil Narine, you would have kind of thought, right, if he comes off, he comes off. If he gets out, he gets out. But again, considering the scoreboard and that too, with the likes of they're both openers dismissed. KKR wouldn't have wanted to be in this position. There was a partnership between Shreyas Iyer and Nitish Rana, and I think the latter really kind of got he kind of got to grips a bit more in playing the likes of Umran Malik. I think he didn't really get, as far as I'm concerned, I think he got more boundaries off the other bowlers, but he still played him better than Shreyas Iyer did. And I actually think the over bowled by Jagdisha Suchit, I think this first over went for 13, and Shashank Singh also bowled an over, I think, before early on, which went for 10 runs. And I think that especially the Suchit over, yes, overall you could say there was 70 for 4 after 10 overs, so it didn't affect things too much. But it did give them a bit of momentum in that partnership, and they didn't really get too many runs off the other bowlers as such. And Shreyas Iyer was dismissed after a sequence of, look, his performance against Umran Malik today wasn't great by any means, and he was set up with 2 short balls, and then look, we've seen him do this before, even in this tournament, where against DC he hit those boundaries against Khalil by moving to the off stump and then moving quite far to the leg stump to access the offside. He did that today, I think, as a mechanism while expecting the short ball. And in the end, Malik bought a searing Yorker. Dale Steyn was quite happy with that in the dugout. And Shreyas Iyer was dismissed for 28, yes, but off. He'd be so disappointed with that dismissal. Yeah, and it just shows that, again, he has struggled with short-pitched bowling. But today, I just think with the fact that he's moving around the crease quite a lot, especially towards the end, just to nullify that, it eventually proved to cost him his wicket. And on Nitish Rana's innings, I actually think with the way that he went all in all, he struck at 150 overall in his innings. What that did was, and Harsha Bhogle brought this up, is the fact that because he was getting his runs at a quick pace, I think that, yes, KKR weren't in a great situation, but again, I just think that it just seems slightly a bit more, the pressure was a bit more alleviated because of the way that Nitish Rana was going. And he hadn't exactly, I mean, he scored 30 in his previous game. He hadn't exactly come to the party before that 30, but today he was outstanding, 54 of 36. And this is where the next wicket to fall was Sheldon Jackson. Now, the reason why I think Sam Billings has to come back into the side, and I'm sure he will, is because Sheldon Jackson at number 5 simply does not have the same effect as Sam Billings in terms of, if you're looking at the transition between the quality players in the top order, if Rahane plays instead of Aaron Finch, you're looking at players that can go at quick strike rates, but they're more. You wouldn't associate them as being outright power players as such. And I think with Sam Billings of how much of an adaptable finisher he is, him at number 5, Russell at 6, and with what Pat Cummins has been doing, him at number 7. And if Narayan bats at number 8, then you can get a bit off him. But I just think that transition is what Sam Billings offers really well. And I don't think that Sheldon Jackson offers that at all. And that's the reason why I'm sure Sam Billings will return for the next game even, but I think that they really missed him this game because they didn't exactly get that batting transition between number 4 and number 6. And with Sheldon Jackson being dismissed for 7 off the bowling of Umran Malik, again, KKR were in a bit of a precarious position, 103 for 5 and 13 overs, and Nitish Rana and Andre Russell were batting together. And again, both of those two, the way they went, I thought, I think that they had a partnership of 39 runs, and Nitish Rana was dismissed off the bowling of Natarajan, trying to give himself room. And it was a ball that was close enough to a Yorker. It took the outside edge, and he was caught behind in the end for an excellent innings of 54 of 36. And I think KKR had a launch pad at that point, and especially when him and Russell were batting together, they had a launch pad to actually get quite a bit more than, or even like 10 runs more, you could say, than what they did in the end. And actually, they were quite lucky to get what they did in the end because the last over went for 17 runs. I thought Bhuvneshwar Kumar, yes, he gave runs in his third over, but he was absolutely outstanding today, especially his last over, 7 runs for 1 wicket. And I think that SRH, even though they conceded 175, they still would have taken that because at one point, especially towards the end, it looked like KKR were going to struggle to get to that mark. But then as they hadn't crossed the 160 mark at the start of the 19th over. But I thought that last over really gave KKR something to play with in the end. And I was surprised that Suchit had only gone for 15 runs in his first 2 overs. I think that with the 13-run over that he bowled at the start, there was a risk of KKR getting momentum from that over. And I think that partnership did gain a slight bit of momentum, even though it wasn't that big of a partnership all in all. Yes, 39 runs, but I think it didn't affect the innings too much in the end. But I actually thought that I was surprised that Suchit's first 2 overs only went for 15 runs. And in the last over, Russell kind of got the runs that KKR needed in the end. 17 runs of the last over to get them 175 for 8. The bowling I thought was generally quite good. Marco Jansen, 1 for 26, really good from him. Natarajan, 3 for 37 is 4. I thought he bowled better than what his figures showed. Umran Malik was excellent. Yes, he's raw, and at times, I think even when he has gone for runs in this tournament, I think the ball has just flown off the bat, and at times it's not necessarily been due to bad bowling. He is raw, but today I thought it was the best that I've ever seen him bowl. Bhuvneshwar Kumar, apart from 1 over, I thought he was outstanding. And yes, for the 4th bowler, I think that they, without having Washington Sundar on the side, they certainly missed him. And I thought they'd play Shreyas Gopal because the 4th bowler went for 1 for 42 in 4 overs. And you think, all in all, yes, Bhuvneshwar Kumar and Natarajan went at 9.25 per over. But all in all, you'd think that if the 4th bowler had been kind of a slightly bit more of a 4 over bank, you could say, then maybe the total would have been slightly less than it was. But even then, SRH I thought would have taken chasing 176 rather. And Abhishek Sharma and Kane Williamson walked out to bat, and straight away I think that it was actually a blessing in disguise that Cummins dismissed Abhishek Sharma for 3 off 10. I think that yes for KKR, yes for SRH, since there wasn't much assistance for the spinners, and KKR give run to the death. So I think that they would have had an easier time catching up in this case than they did in the previous 2 games. But still, they wouldn't have wanted to make a habit of taking it this slow in the power play. So I think with Abhishek Sharma being dismissed, it brought Rahul Tripathi to the crease fairly early, which would have, I think this is their highest power play score so far for SRH. So I think with the acceleration that Rahul Tripathi showed basically from the start of his innings, Kane Williamson could take that bit of time. He was growing into his innings, but Andre Russell dismissed him off a delivery that wasn't really there to pull, and the ball went onto the stumps off an inside edge. Williamson would have been disappointed with that. But after that, the partnership between Tripathi and Aiden Markram absolutely outstanding. I think with Rahul Tripathi, again, Suryakumar Yadav is a player that I think it really is a hallmark of this kind of a trait. I think if you're in terms of transcending a surface, whether you're playing on a slow surface especially, you'd need to do that, or if you're playing on a really good batting over, generally just whatever situation he bats in, he gets a quick start. And I think with Rahul Tripathi, especially with the way that the Abhishek Sharma and Kane Williamson go for the majority of the power play, I think that it's really important for Tripathi to also play in the way that he does for the team to catch up for the remaining deliveries of the innings. And I think that he also has this unique trait like Suryakumar Yadav, where he just seems to get going in whatever situation he walks out to bat. He can open the batting, bat in the middle order, or even bat at number 6, and he can get going pretty much straight away. It's just a unique skill that, apart from him and Suryakumar Yadav, I actually don't think that there are many players that I can think. I actually can't think of anyone else bar those two that have such a skill of getting going straight away in whatever situation they walk out to the crease. And it's the reason why Suryakumar Yadav can bat at number 5 and still be successful, and also the reason why Tripathi can pretty much bat anywhere and still be successful. So I think both of those two have this uncanny ability, which I think that is what puts them in really, I think, the upper bracket of players in this tournament. I mean, if there was a case for me where if I had to let's say if I had to build an IPL team where the home venue was Chennai, I'd play Tripathi at 3 and Suryakumar Yadav at 4, because certainly they could transcend the surface in terms of scoring quick runs in the middle overs. And yeah, I just think that both of those two have such an uncanny skill. And with him really being the aggressor early on, and Markram joining in towards the end, this was quite an easy chase for SRH. Yes, at one point after the 10th over was finished, they scored 19 runs off 21 balls, and you thought the KKR were getting back into the game by enforcing some scoreboard pressure. But 3 fours of the last 3 deliveries of Umesh Yadav's 4th over. The first one being a bit fortuitous, but the next 2 being a really well-timed cover drives from Aiden Markram, which kind of set his innings off as well. And KKR just couldn't stop these 2 at all. Apart from that phase where 19 runs were scored off 21 balls, SRH had pretty much a field day with a bat, you could say. And this is their template, especially without the likes of Sundar and Romario Shepherd playing in the side. I think they're getting much more playing Marco Janten, especially from the bowling front. But without playing Sundar in the side, I just think that that hitter in the lower order is certainly someone that they don't have, someone that can give them consistent runs in that lower order. So I think that with their template, I've said this so many times, where one of their top 5 they'd look to really bat, or 2 of their top 5 they'd look to really bat through the innings and unleash at the end. And in their last 3 games, no one has really had to bat past number 5. So I think that that's something which is their desired template when they're batting, and in the last 3 games they've chased down 3 totals really well. And regarding the KKR bowling, I think Umesh Yadav's figures were really done well from the way that he started up front. I mean, none for 31 in this scenario, you'd have to say, is really good from him. And I think that that's the way they should use him, at least bowling 3 overs up front in the power play. And so even if he does go for runs in the 1 over that he bowls outside the power play, I think his figures won't look too bad in the end. Pat Cummins, once again, a very expensive day for him. I personally think they should bowl at least 3 overs of him up front. I mean, many times in IPL 2020 when he bowled up front after getting a pasting in his very first game of that season when he had bowled, I think he had started bowling from the middle overs. I think that a lot of the times when I've seen him bowl up front in the IPL, he's given 19 runs or that thereabouts in the first 3 overs that he's bowled, and he's not given anything away. I think that when you see him doing that, I don't know why they're just planning to bowl him at the death, because they're going to go for runs at the death anyhow, and I don't think Pat Cummins is going to solve that. So they may as well just do what their desired template is and just try to invest everything in the first 15 overs. They've got Umesh Yadav, Pat Cummins at the new bowl, and they've got Chakravarti Narayan in the middle overs. If Russell can bowl 1 or 2 at the death, they wouldn't mind that because he's their best death bowler by far. And then just whatever else they can get. So I think that it's something that KKR can't really experiment on. That's just kind of the thing that they have to do. So relying on Pat Cummins to bowl at the death, for me, it just doesn't work. Aman Khan only bowled 1 over, and the thing is, apparently he's more of a batsman or he turned more of a batsman that bowls a bit of medium pace. He batted at number 9 today in this game, so kind of knowing that or realizing that, I kind of thought it was interesting that they chose to play him instead of Rafiq Salam for this game. Varun Chakravarti, since, even in the previous game, there wasn't too much assistance for the spinners. Already, he doesn't turn the ball much, but what they can do on these flatter or kind of these less spinner-friendly surfaces is that they can play him just like a medium pacer with the speeds that he bowls as well. And with the outstanding shots that Chakravarti bowled, I kind of played off him in the first, 3 or 4 balls that he bowled. I think that in some cases, yes, the inexperience does show, and I think that on these flat surfaces or these more batting-friendly surfaces, the teams play him more like a medium pacer. But I think a few times it's not necessarily like he bowls badly. I just think that especially today in the first over that he bowled, the shots from Tripathi were just ridiculous. And that kind of set the tone with the day that he was going to have. So again, I think the inexperience does show. And against Sunil Narayan, once again, none for 23 in his 4 overs. And so again, you can't, there is, obviously Narayan is way more experienced than Chakravarti. And so in these kind of situations, you would expect the latter to struggle a bit, but I'm sure that he will learn. And again, he mostly has good days, and this was an off day for him. But I do think that he may struggle when he's bowling on surfaces like these. And that's on this game. I think, look, for KKR, the moment they're playing on the Brabant Stadium, and especially in the case where how their game against Delhi went, when they're playing on a belter of a surface, I wouldn't necessarily put too much money for KKR to win in those situations. I think they'd much rather bowl first on bowling friendly tracks and chase 130. I think that again, you're not going to get that in the Brabant Stadium, and that's why I think that's an issue that will plague KKR when they play on kind of surfaces that are belters. And that's the reason why I wouldn't be surprised if they don't qualify this year. And for SRH, their 3rd win, so really good from them. And regarding the 2 games tomorrow, Mumbai are playing Lucknow at this very venue, and if the game goes like the Delhi versus KKR game, Mumbai Indians are probably going to have to bolster their bowling because, yes, Stuart Brevis has done well, but I still feel that Riley Meredith as that extra overseas slot to playing 2 overseas bowlers along with Jasprit Bumrah is something that it's something that they need, because I just think that if you're looking at them facing off against this Lucknow Super Giants batting lineup, it could be a case where if they don't, let's say, I think they have to play Fabian Allen as well, because the problem is, if they go in with 6 batsmen in this game, which I don't think that they'll do, if Lucknow bat first and have a field day, they may be chasing 230 with 6 batsmen. And if the Mumbai Indians bowl first, then I think they have to bolster their bowling and get the extra overseas seamer in, even if it's in the place of Dewald Brevis. As I've said before, I just think that it's a bit unlucky on him, but I think that, again, the slots that I think he's kind of taking up a slot for that overseas seamer role, which I think the team would need more considering the batsmen that they've already got around Dewald Brevis. And I think that if they bowl first and if they bat for, they're gonna have to really score what do you think 220 odd to defend it against this Lucknow Super Giants with their bowling. So I think they need that extra assurance in terms of the second overseas seamer. But I do think MI will find it a bit tough to win that game tomorrow. And Delhi are playing Bangalore at the Wankhede Stadium. And on that game, look, I think that I'm not sure if Harshal Patel will be back for the next game, so maybe they'll have to play Akashdeep in the same side as well, but maybe they should play Siddharth Kaul instead of him. I just think that he can be expensive as well, but I just think playing Siraj and Akashdeep in the same 11, we've seen that it's not exactly worked out. I don't think playing Kaul in the same 11 will work out that much either. He will still probably be expensive. But I wouldn't say he's as much of a comfort zone bowler as you'd think Akashdeep is. So if Delhi bowl first in that game, whoever bowls first in that game would have a bit of an advantage. But at the same time, Delhi do have the better bowling attack, and but RCB probably have the better batting lineup. So it'll be an interesting one, that game at the Wankhede Stadium. I actually can't predict too much of a winner for that game. I do think Delhi Capitals are the better side, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get over the line, but let's see how that game goes. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, please share it with your friends, and remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?